You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into RBLR Lightning. And we still don't have an off-season show for you just quite yet because the Lightning are still rolling through the postseason. And now we are here to preview round number 3, the Eastern Conference Finals. The Tampa Bay Lightning are back for the third consecutive season. As always, my name is Jake. Alongside me here is my good friend, my co-host, Matt. Matt, welcome back. How you doing? Are you excited for this next matchup here in the Eastern Conference Finals?
I'm stoked, man. I mean, it's it's not going to be it's not going to be a typical Lightning season unless we beat a New York team in the conference finals. So I've got a good feeling about this one coming up.
And for those of you who may be wondering, who is that New York team? It's the New York Rangers. They defeated the Carolina Hurricanes in 7 games. And they finally broke that streak of Carolina only being able to win at home. They stole one in Carolina and are now moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals to face the Tampa Bay Lightning. So we're going to break this all down for you guys. Take a look at who we think are some of the X factors, some of the injury news and updates surrounding the team and what you can expect moving here into round 3. But Matt, the first thing I want to talk about is the schedule. We actually got this schedule rather quickly. It came out before the Game 7 or Game 6 had even happened, I believe. So it's a pretty basic, normal schedule. This series will start on Wednesday, the 1st. Game 1 taking place at 8 p.m. Most of these games are at 8 p.m. The only one that's not is Game 3. But Games 1 and 2 obviously are in New York on the 1st and 3rd respectively at 8 p.m. Then it comes back to Tampa on the 5th and the 7th. But Game 3 will take place at 3 p.m., and then we're back to the normal 8 p.m. starts. Games 5 and 6 are on the 9th and 11th, and those are also 8 p.m. starts. And then the only weird thing about this schedule is if we do go to a Game 7, we will have a 2-day gap before Game 7 takes place on the 14th. So luckily, no back-to-backs this round, nothing too crazy, but a couple little extra rest if we go to Game 7. That's the schedule we got for round 3, Matt.
I'll take it. I'm not a big fan of these 8 p.m. starts, but again, I'll take it. The only one that bugs me is that I'm not a big fan of the afternoon games. Like, I hate to put a prejudice on them, but I don't think the Lightning play all that well in afternoon games. It seems like we lost a lot during the regular season. But, it doesn't matter. It's not the regular season anymore. The biggest reason it bugs me is because I'll be at work. So
there you go, right? That's always the worst.
Yeah, I'm
How
being a
dare
little
they
selfish.
not schedule around you?
I'm saying they should really ask me before they do this.
No, I don't blame you. The 3 p.m. starts are a little weird, but and even the 8 p.m. starts, I know they're not great for people on the East Coast, but they do it because this is the best time that they can slot it to make it work for both East Coast and West Coast. Because you start around at 9 p.m., that becomes too late on the East Coast. But if you go to 7, it's kind of a little early on the West Coast. So 8 p.m. is kind of the middle ground there. But nonetheless, that's when the games are. That is the schedule for this first series.
I have a question. Does it show you, is it ESPN or is it ESPN Plus? Does it show you who's covering the games?
So
I know it's
I
an
don't
ESPN.
remember off the top of my head, but I can check quickly who it is. I think it's ESPN has been doing the Eastern Conference. So if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be ESPN. And yes, it is going to be ESPN for the Lightning and the Rangers, which actually is good news for me. I prefer ESPN over TNT. I don't know about you, though.
No, man. I'm a TNT guy.
Well, see, the thing is for me, you guys know, if you've listened to the podcast before, I am not a fan of NBC, and TNT kind of hired everybody from NBC. So I'm not a huge fan of TNT. They got really nice graphics, though. They got cool studios, but not a huge fan of TNT.
I think the presentation is better for TNT, but maybe the actual, actual play-by-play
I'm right there with you.
aspect of it, I'll give it to ESPN.
Yes. See, that's where I'm at with that as well. And I believe ESPN has the finals this year as well.
Yes, they do.
So for anybody who doesn't like ESPN, hate to break it to you, but you're going to have to get used to it because it's going to be the ESPN for the finals. But Matt, let's talk about some injury updates because as we know from that Florida series, the Lightning were banged up. And a lot of fans were super excited to get a lot of rest after sweeping the Florida Panthers in straight 4 games. But we have some updates. Sergachev has been practicing. He is supposed to be back and good to go for game 1. Hagel has kind of been on and off here. He was seen walking in a walking boot, which wasn't a great sign, but he's been practicing as well. He actually
I heard it was just precautionary.
Yes, I believe that's what it is. He actually came to practice today and then left in the middle of practice, but then came back later. So Hagel throwing Lightning fans through some ups and downs right now, whether he's not going to play. But Cooper had said he expects Hagel to be ready for game 1. So not confirmed, but we should have Sergachev and Hagel both back for game 1 against the Rangers here. But then, Matt, the big news that everybody's talking about right now, there was a Lightning reporter, and I'm going to go pull up his name too to give him credit for this, but he posted a picture of the Lightning equipment bags, and one of them was kind of turned around and the number was showing, and it was Kyle Berger who posted this on Twitter, and that number was none other than number 21, Mr. Braden Point, which brings up an interesting conversation. Will we see Braden Point in round 3?
That's a tough one. It's it's very enlightening. It's nice to see that the bag, his equipment bag is going with the rest of the guys up to New York. I'm guessing we're probably not going to see him, but again, he might just be practicing up there, traveling with the team. We don't want to rush him, especially if we get off to a good start in the series as well. If we're down 1 or 2 games early, like maybe bring him in if he's ready. But this is all just kind of speculation. Kyle Berger, he's a reputable source as well, so this isn't just somebody throwing out an old picture, whatever it may be, just trying to stir up some hype anyway. So I'm optimistic, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself here.
Right. So what I think this means is it doesn't confirm that he's playing a game 1 or 2, but this says at the very least he's probably going to be practicing with the team in New York, because really, if that's not a possibility, there's no reason to bring his equipment with you. So I think at the very least we could see Braden Point practicing over these next couple of days, which is huge. We haven't seen him practice since that injury in game 7. And that just tells you that he's getting closer to being back. But I 100% agree with you as well, though, that you do not want to rush him back, because the worst thing that could happen is he comes back in this series, gets hurt quickly, re-aggravates something, and then can't play for the rest of the series or even the finals if the Lightning are in that position. So I know the Lightning won't do that, though. Hopefully they won't. And hopefully he's back soon, though. And it does look like he is getting very close with his equipment now traveling to New York. So hopefully we'll have a full Lightning team ready to go. But until then, the Lightning will probably continue 11-7. Although I'll ask you this, Matt, if let's say Brandon Hagel isn't ready to go, because he's probably the most questionable one besides Braden Point, what do the Lightning do? Because they've been going 11-7, but if they have another forward out, who would you like to see slot in for Hagel?
The obvious answer is Riley Nash. I think he's just going to be somewhere on that 4th line, just going to be eating tough minutes, just playing real defensively. Don't expect any kind of offensive impact from him, but that's not what he's going to be there for anyway. A name we haven't really heard in a while, since really early on in this season, is Alex Barré-Boulet, who I've always kind of enjoyed. I know he's if like one of the actual like top 6 guys went out, that's probably where he would slot in. But like, Brandon Hagel, he's kind of somewhere in between that 3rd and 2nd line. So I'd bet on Riley Nash, but I'd also bet that Hagel, he'll be willing to play at least for game 1. He'll be ready to play for game 1. So I'll suggest we not worry about that just yet.
Yeah, no, I do think he's going to be back, and you're probably right, but I thought it'd be interesting just to bring up. The Lightning have been going 11-7, which I expect them to continue to do in this series. Before we get into the previous games and what these two teams look like, Matt, let me ask you this. We've had the age-old debate right now of rest versus rust. A lot of people will often talk about it's good to have some rest, but if it goes on too long, a team can start to be rusty. The Lightning have tended to have an issue with that too. They are a team that typically doesn't perform great after they've had an extended period of time off. Does this concern you in any way? I'll go first and say that I don't think it does. Listen, if there's any, Cooper said this at his press conference, if there's any time this team needed an extended break, it's right now because they've had a lot of guys banged up. I'm sure this team will be ready to go for game one. It's the postseason. They know how much this means. They've been in this position before. So I don't think rust is going to be a major issue. You might see it a little bit in game one, but I think the Lightning would snap back into it right away.
Yeah, Cooper had a quote that kind of scared me a little bit. Not scared me, but he said something along the lines of, this is the most banged up that this team has been after any series I've ever seen them play. So I'm not too worried about the rest. I think that the way that this team is playing, if they can carry that momentum, even with, a week and a half long break, however long it has been, I still can't see it being much of an issue. And if anything, if there's one team that can, snap out of it and turn it on late in a game, it's the Lightning. So, they might come out slow. They might just be non-existent for the first period. But again, if there's any team that can just kind of knock it off, get a little bit of a wake-up lesson early on in a game, it's the Lightning. So I'm not all that worried about it. I'm just mainly concerned for all the guys' health. So, that sweep and the long break, I think it's going to be more beneficial than it will hurt us.
And listen, we know if the Lightning do lose game one, we know how good they are at bouncing back in the next game. So is it even really that much of a concern, to be honest with you? I don't think so. So let's look at some of how these two teams stack up and talk about the Rangers a little bit here. But looking at the previous 3 games that they played in the regular season, the Rangers actually won all 3 of these in a shootout. Brian Elliott was in net for one of these games with the scores. If you wanted to know, Rangers won 4-3 in the shootout. Then the Rangers won 4-0. That game was at home in New York. And then it was a 2-1 loss for the Lightning in that third and final game. However, though, Matt, as we have talked about plenty of times on this podcast, is that the regular season does not matter. It means nothing, as we saw throughout multiple times over the Lightning's postseason career. But does the Rangers winning all 3 of these games bring up any sort of concerns for you, Matt?
Not really. Over the last 2 weeks, it's really been cemented into my brain that this regular season Lightning team and then there is a postseason Lightning team. They are completely different teams. And the way that we lost those games, I'm omitting that 4-0 shutout because that was dog days of the season. Nobody was playing well. So I'm omitting that from this argument. But the other 2, they were 1-goal games. One of them was a shootout loss, which I don't know about you. I don't know your stance on the shootout, but to me, if you lose in the shootout, you tied. You didn't actually lose, despite what the points will tell you. And that shootout loss, I would say that the Lightning, they played better all game. It was New Year's Eve, I believe. And yeah, the 2 of the goals, they were Brian Elliott giveaways. I remember Barclay Goodrow, he scored after Elliott gave it up to him. So just kind of bad mistakes hurt us in that game. But overall, I'd say that we outplayed them. We played them better. And I get it. It's not an excuse or anything, but it's just something to kind of rest your head on. And that 2-1 game, that was kind of it was a goaltending battle. I think that's going to be the one that's going to be most that's going to indicate what we're going to get in this upcoming series. It's going to be Schusterkin versus Vasilevskiy. It's no secret anymore that they're both just absolutely phenomenal goaltenders. And I believe there was a really late goal in that game as well. So it's going to be just, who kind of makes the first mistake. But again, I'm not putting these regular season games, I'm not putting too much emphasis or thought into them. It's a clean slate. Both teams are tired and banged up, so it's just going to be who can outlast, who can finish the endurance race, essentially.
The endurance race is a good way to put it. And even though, as I just said, we know from I hate to keep bringing it up, but 2019 regular season doesn't matter, and I know that. But something about these 3 games kind of worries me. Listen, New York is a very good team, and they obviously know how to play us well. Again, though, as you mentioned, I mean, just look at the Lightning in this since Game 6. They've been a completely different team, even in the postseason themselves. You look at the start of that Toronto series and the very end of it, and then all of that Florida series. It's like 2 different teams that we've seen in the postseason for the Lightning. So it's not going to mean anything, but I think it is something to consider and keep in the back of your head that, hey, listen, New York knows how to play us, and they've played us well in the regular season. So you got to give them credit for that, no question about it. But looking at the team stats between these 2 teams, they're actually pretty close when it comes to the statistics. The Tampa Bay Lightning, their power play percentage is at 22.9%. New York's been a little bit better there. They have a 32.5% on the power play. As for the penalty kill, the Lightning have the advantage there, 87.8% on the PK, and then the New York 80.5% on the penalty kill. As for goals for and goals against per game, the Lightning 3.27 goals for, and then 2.45 goals against. That largely due to thanks to Andrei Vasilevskiy and his dominance over the last couple of games, and the Lightning defenders who've been blocking so many shots. And then you have the Rangers, who have a 3.43 goals for per game, and then a 3 goals against per game. So, at the end of the day, pretty even stats when it comes to both. The biggest difference I see here is the goals against per game, and that comes to Andrei Vasilevskiy and the Lightning blocking all the shots that they have. And that's where I think a huge difference in this game. We'll get to the 2 goaltenders in just a little bit here. But, Matt, any takeaways from these playoff statistics?
Did you say that the Rangers had a 35% power play?
That is correct. Yes, they do.
That's a little scary. I know that their power play has been, really darn good.
32%, sorry.
You know what? Still, you're splitting hairs at that point. If you're over 30%, you're doing something right. So that's going to be really the biggest thing for me in this series is, obviously stay out of the box, but especially against this New York team. Like, Florida's power play, they were anemic. They did not show up. Even that one that they got, it just fizzled after that. If New York is clicking like this, they're really going to have to be sharp and be on their toes and be smart, play smart, drag New York into the fight and don't get sucked into the fight. Get under guys' skins, but don't get into the box. I was yeah, again, just with how good that the penalty kill has been as well, I'm not entirely worried, but again, 32 versus 22, it's going to be it's going to be an intense special teams battle throughout the entire series is what it seems like it's going to be.
Yeah, just don't take it too many men on the ice penalty. That's all I ask. It's just
or puck over the glass.
Or puck over the glass. Too many men on the ice, more so. But Palat, looking at you, buddy. No, that will be an interesting factor to watch. But if the Lightning penalty kill can do what they did to the Florida Panthers, granted the Florida Panthers power play was an absolute disaster even before playing against the Lightning. But if they can keep doing what they're doing, I think that Rangers power play will come down a little bit. And not be as lethal as it was against the Canes. I'm trying to quickly look here, too, at what Carolina's penalty kill percentage was. But, of course, as I'm looking for the statistic, it's slipping me. Oh, here it is. So Carolina had a 74% on the penalty kill. So Lightning definitely have a better penalty kill than Carolina did. So that could play a factor there as well. But next to look at, talk about here, let's talk about the goaltenders. We were talking about that goals against and the block shots for the Lightning. Andrei Vasilevskiy versus Igor Schusterkin. I believe I got his pronunciation right, but 2 elite goaltenders. A lot of people are calling Igor a future Vasilevskiy. Some are saying Vasilevskiy 2.0. I'm not buying that just quite yet.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, I believe it when I see it, right? But a lot of people are talking about this is going to be a big goaltending battle. The Rangers have not battled a starting goaltender really yet. They've been playing nothing but backups and third strings for the first 2 rounds, and now they're coming in here to take on Andrei Vasilevskiy. A reporter actually asked Barclay Goodrow which goalie he'd rather have in net in Vasilevskiy or Schusterkin, which I thought was a hilarious question because what do you want Goodrow to say in that position? Like, of course he's going to take Igor. That's the team he's playing for. So, but Matt, I wanted to ask you, do you see any, what are your thoughts on this storyline of this battle between Vasilevskiy and Igor? Because personally, when I look at it, I don't think anybody compares to Andrei Vasilevskiy, and I know I'm a Lightning fan, but I mean, just look at the numbers. Andrei Vasilevskiy is not human, and he's been dominating and is probably one of the best goaltenders in NHL history.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna say that Schusterkin is overrated, not by a long shot, but he hasn't been his regular season self these playoffs. Like he had a really good game 7 showing. He's had a couple of good games, and it's not even just stopping the puck. He had 2 assists in a game, which is, it's crazy, albeit, they're just saves off the pad and the Rangers scored off the rush. It's still 2 assists in a game. That's pretty crazy. But yes, again, nobody compares to Andrei Vasilevskiy currently in the league. If they had Patrick Waugh, maybe, but nobody compares to Vasilevskiy. Shusterkin, he is a great talent, but I still think he has a lot to learn. And again, with this Rangers team, it's going to be the first time that they've faced an actual, not only a starting goaltender, but a Conn Smythe winning goaltender, a Vezina winning goaltender. Andrei friggin' Vasilevskiy. There's not a whole lot to elaborate on, but it's going to be a titanic task for them to get goals by. I mean, again, Antti Raanta, he's no slouch, but he's got a lot to work on, and it was Louis Domingue as well, who I love him as a person. He's not the greatest goaltender in the world, and both series, I mean, they got pushed to 7. So if Vasilevskiy can play, if he can play as good as he did in that Florida series, I'm not worried at all, but that's asking a lot from him, but we know he has it in him. As far as Shusterkin, I haven't watched a whole hell of a lot of Rangers games this year, but I understand the hype. I understand he is a fantastic goaltender, and they would not come close to where they are at right now if it were not for him. Kind of, not a mirror image, but similar to the Lightning. The Lightning would not be anywhere near where they are right now without Andrei Vasilevskiy. They're the backbones of their team. But again, I'm giving the edge here to the Lightning. It's a proven goaltender who is the best in the world, ready to do it again, who never gets shaken versus a young kid, bro. I mean, like Shusterkin, he cannot be older than 23, 24 at most. I don't exactly know, but again, he's got a lot to learn. And you know what? I can see this series being a confidence builder for Shusterkin if the Rangers lose. I mean, who else would you rather lose to? I would assume that Vasilevsky's got to be one of Shusterkin's idols, despite a small age gap. He's got to be somebody who wants to emulate his game after and mock his kind of style, because again, who does it better than Vasilevskiy? They are fellow countrymen. Again, there's no better goaltender to lose to. So
I'm actually going to blow your mind a little bit here, Matt. How old did you think Shusterkin was?
I'm going 23.
So he's actually 26 years old.
He is?
He's 26. Vasilevskiy's 27. So Vasily is only 1 year older than Shusterkin. Yep. Now this is according to Wikipedia, so I could be wrong here, but he is 26 years old. So
I mean, that's still air quotes here, young for a goaltender, but I thought he was younger than that. Albeit, he still hasn't had a whole lot of NHL experience. It was this season, last season, and maybe a handful before, but he's got a lot to learn. North American ice is different. He's already proved a lot of people wrong already, but again, I still think that Vasilevskiy, he's just gonna not put a clinic on, but show Igor a couple of things and let him know who's the best. Remind him who's the best goaltender in the league, and remind everybody else.
Listen, the key for the Rangers is don't let the Lightning get to a series clinching scenario, because that's when Andrei Vasilevskiy just becomes unbeatable in game. He's literally allowed 1 goal in series clinching games. 6 of them have been shutouts. It is quite ridiculous what he's been able to do. And until somebody beats him, and maybe it is Shusterkin, who knows, but until somebody beats him, he's the best. He's always going to have the edge. There's no question about that. In fact, I don't remember what the exact quote was, but somebody asked Andrei Vasilevskiy about this next series, and he was just like, let's go. let's go win. Like the 3 words, that was it. He was done. He's like, he is locked in and ready to go. There was actually, I don't know if you saw, Matt, someone posted on Twitter from a post from The Athletic. I believe it was by Joe Smith, which, by the way, if you haven't gone and checked out his work at The Athletic, absolutely recommend it. It's definitely worth it. He puts out some amazing pieces out there. But he had an article on Andrei Vasilevskiy. And there was a quote in there about I can't remember who it was, but the head of the Lightning scouting was showing some of the prospects around, one of them being Andrei Vasilevskiy. What's that?
Was it Matthew Darsh, the scout you're talking about?
I don't.
Nah, he's a pro scout. So
I don't think it was Darsh. I should know this name, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. But
oh well.
He was showing Vasilevskiy around, and Vasi saw a picture of players holding the Stanley Cup, and he kind of stood back for a minute, was smiling, and they asked him about it. He's like, "You like that picture?" And Vasilevskiy just said, "That's going to be me." Like that's how much determination and how good he is got a goals in mind, and nothing will stop him from achieving that goal. And he already has, really. He's already won a Conn Smythe trophy in his day. That was the picture. I believe it was Patrick Waugh holding a Conn Smythe in a Stanley Cup, if I'm not mistaken. Go check out the article to confirm what I'm saying here, but amazing story from about Andrei Vasilevskiy there and how impressive he is overall. But now that we've talked about what everybody's talking about as difference makers, Matt, I wanted to ask you, and I'll give mine here in just a minute, but are there any other players for the Rangers or for the Lightning that you think could be major difference makers in this series?
Yes. And it's kind of out of left field, but, it's not surprising, actually. It's Jacob Trouba. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen some of his highlight hits, but he's a wrecking ball, and he is not afraid to take every single inch and breath out of you. He will hit you. Every single person on the Lightning needs to keep their head up and watch out if number 8 is on the ice, because, Trouba, when he was in Winnipeg, he was more of an offensive style of defenseman, but since coming to New York, that first year was a little rough, but he really rounded out his game and turned into a very, very physical presence. And again, he is not afraid, and he will take any piece of you that you give him if you're not paying attention. So that's going to be a big difference maker for me. It's probably not going to be like an X factor for me, but it's going to be somebody to watch out for. It's going to be, I'm willing to bet you there's going to be at least one big center ice hit that Trouba's just going to, and the thing about him as well, they're not dirty hits. Trouba's a big guy, but he connects. He does it right. As much as it pains me to admit it, he lays the body and he does it clean. I know he hit Sebastian Aho, I want to say. A bunch of people were upset about it, but it was a clean hit. Again, he gets the entire body. He doesn't make head contact, but he will not take it easy on you at all. So that's going to be somebody who I want to watch out for just as an individual. Do you have anybody in mind, or do you have any player versus player matchups you're really interested wanting to see?
Honestly, obviously you got the top guys for the Rangers and Panarin and Zibanejad. Oh man, his name is so tough to say.
Zibanejad.
Thank you. But honestly,
the Z guy.
Mine is the Z guy. Mine, I think, is Barclay Goodrow. And the simple reason being, ever since he came back for the Rangers, they've been really good because he was out for a while in that second round and part of the first or the ending part of the first as well. But he's a guy that also knows the Lightning and can probably give the Rangers some advice on how to beat them and how they perform in the playoffs. So Goodrow could be a factor, I think. For the Rangers. We've seen how good of a postseason performer he is when he was with Tampa Bay. So that for me is going to be someone to watch out for. I think he brings the Rangers to another level, honestly, even though he's kind of a depth guy. It's exactly what he did on Tampa Bay, but he still made, a lot of top quality plays and made a difference when he was out there on the ice. So for me, it's Barclay Goodrow for the Rangers.
You know what I'm really interested to see? It's the rematch of Panarin versus Kucherov. The way that it ended last time with that awkward, brutal handshake. I think Kucherov's looking for a little bit of personal revenge. I know that they're buddies, like they're really good friends. That picture.
But
still haunts
he remembered
me.
that.
Yes, that picture haunts me. I can only imagine how it haunts Kucherov. So I
Even
know
when you're really good friends with someone, if they do something, you're like, I'm going to get you back for that.
it makes me
I'm
more
not gonna forget."
competitive. Yeah, if
Right.
it's one of my friends, man, I'm going for blood. I'm going for the jugular. So,
My co-host over at the Bolt Report actually sent that picture to me in the text, and he was like, Panarin is not ready for the beast that he has created, which I thought was hilarious.
what I
Because
think's
it might be true.
been really funny is a lot of people have been, just jokingly upset at Columbus. They're like, "Look what you did! Look what you did!" So,
How dare you?
I know I'm really excited to see how that whole matchup's going to go down because these are arguably their best offensive weapons for either team. So it's going to be really fun. They are mirror images of each other. Obviously, Kucherov is better in my opinion, but if there are two players that are extremely similar in this league, it's those two, and it's going to be a show off between them.
Yeah, it definitely will be interesting for sure. We'll have to do a podcast for another time when we're talking about the beast that was unleashed by Columbus for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Although I would argue that it was more everybody at the award ceremony making all those jokes that really
it was
unleashed the
Keenan
beast.
Thompson.
Yeah, especially in Andre Vasilevskiy. Everybody knows those famous sayings. But before we go on, I want to take a quick pause. Also, thank you to everybody who's still listening right now to the podcast. We appreciate all of your support. And don't forget to go check out our merch shop that we have at RBLR.com. You can go check out all of the awesome shirts that we have. You can use code BOLTS at checkout for 10% off your order. You get something cool. You get to support the podcast. So definitely be sure to go check it out for listening and sitting around here with us talking some Lightning hockey as we get set for round number 3. But I think the next thing, couple more things before we wrap this up here, Matt. I want to talk about your keys to how the Lightning are going to defeat the New York Rangers. For me, I'll start us off here and say the number one thing is, and I say this, I feel like all the time, but it's stay out of the box. The Rangers have some very good power play guys, and you don't want to give them tons of opportunities. Eliminate those silly penalties as much as you possibly can. That is the biggest thing for me. And then the second thing is, just get off to those quick starts. Listen, the goal for the Lightning in these first 2 games, just steal one in New York, come back at least tied 1-1. Lightning were able to steal both. They're normally really good on the road. So if they can do that, get off to a quick start, and they're so good at not being able to get buried. That's what's kept them alive in a lot of these series. If they can get off to a good start as well, it makes them almost impossible to beat. So that's my second thing. And then the third thing is have those depth guys step up. Listen, we're still without Braden Point. There could potentially be some issues with Hagel. I expect him to be in game 1, but he could re-aggravate something. We'll see what happens. But those younger guys are going to need to step up if we need them, especially. So having the depth scoring to continue to do what it's done over these years past. But Matt, what about for you? What are your keys for the Lightning success in round number 3?
Definitely defend from the hash marks, from the face-off dots and down. So to the net. What I see New York does a lot is, that they've got a great cycle play, but where all of their goals seem to come from is, cross crease passes and, EA NHL style goals to where, it's just completely unstoppable. When you've got Panarin feeding it over to Kreider, good things are going to happen. But yeah, they do a lot of net front play. They get a lot of greasy goals as well. So be strong in front of the net and be strong in your own zone. Again, if they can emulate a little bit of what they did against Florida, I think they'll be in good hands. But again, I think that New York, they're a tougher team, a little bit more physical, a little bit more willing to get into these extremely dirty, hard areas. Again, like in front of the net and in between those hash marks right down the slot. So this team, they're nobody on this team is afraid to shoot, and they got to know what they're up against as well. They've got really good depth players like Philip Hedl. They've got first and second overall picks Alexis Lafreniere and Capo Caco. Laffy, he's really coming into his own. That kid line has been really underrated. They've had a lot of timely scoring as well. So, I guess number 2 is know who you're going up against, know who's on the ice. Again, like Jacob Trouba as well. So know who you're going up against. This team, they've got 4 lines of all really good players, except Ryan Reeves. No, beware of Revo 7-5 as well. And for number one, it's don't get frustrated. Win that endurance race. Take it game by game, period by period. But if you're tied 0-0, coming with 10 minutes left in the game, don't start rushing it. Don't start taking chances, and don't start making mistakes. I know it's going to be, again, a gargantuan task to score on Schusterkin, but don't get frustrated. Like we saw in that Panthers game 2, the Panthers, they were getting frustrated, and they started taking some chances. And again, with 59 minutes and 57 seconds played, they gave up, and it really came to bite them. So I'd hate to see the exact opposite thing happen to us. So again, just be patient. Wait for play good defense, because the offense will follow. Again, if they can, I've said it 100 times so far, if they can just emulate a little bit of what they did in that Florida series, they're in good hands. I know that they can do it. But again, just to reiterate, do not get frustrated. We know players on this team like Kucherov, they'll get frustrated. And again, you can't let it get to you. You have to play smart and responsible, because again, defense first, the offense will follow.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. Matt, before I get into predictions, and we'll look a little bit maybe at what's going on in the Western Conference, anything else that you wanted to add before we go into predictions and wrap things up?
No, man. Let's send it.
All right, let's go into predictions. First, we'll start off with this series. Matt, give me your prediction. What do you have for round number 3 here in the Eastern Conference Finals? Oh, I just remembered what I wanted to talk about. I'm glad that I almost got away from me there in my noggin here, but I remembered the last time, by the way, the Lightning played the Rangers in the Eastern Conference Finals was in 2015. The Lightning won in 7, and it's funny if you look at that team, the Lightning actually have a lot of similarities in their players because they've had that core group for so long now.
They've
Ben
had
Bishop
their players too.
Yeah, right, exactly. So
players.
Ben Bishop was the goaltender, and then as you mentioned there, Matt, there's a lot of Rangers players that have now come over and are playing for the Lightning. One of the biggest ones being Ryan McDonough. So it's going to be a lot of interesting parallels between these two teams. And their players. Obviously, the Rangers now have Goodrow as well, but wanted to mention that quickly, but as well. But for my prediction, I'm going Lightning in 6. I think they're taking this series. I think we are going back to the Stanley Cup Finals once again, continuing that quest for the 3-peat. I think the Lightning are going to come out strong. The way they've been playing ever since Game 6, really, against Toronto, they've been on another level. Until somebody can finally beat them back to back, I don't know who can stop them. That's being serious, not just a homer, because the truth is you've got to beat somebody back to back in order to win series. I mean, yes, it is possible to do it without doing that, but it's hard and it's rare. So I'm going Bolts in 6. Matt, what about you?
Rangers have home ice advantage, correct?
That is correct. We have the same amount of points, but unfortunately they have like 2 more regulation wins, I think it is, so they get home ice.
I think is it 2 or 1? I know it's just tiny margin.
It's a tiny difference.
Yeah, whatever. I'm going to agree with you, Jake. I got Bolts in 6. I'm sorry to not be a little more creative than that, but that's what I had coming into this.
No, I like it.
Yeah, Bolts in 6. I just think that the Lightning offense is going to throw them something that they haven't really been tested with. They played Carolina, and they've got some really good offensive players, but again, they just don't have superstars like the Lightning have, and as well as Pittsburgh. They've got Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, but they've got a deep team, but they don't have as many proven superstars, difference makers that the Lightning do. And I think, that's what it's going to come down to. I think, again, I'm giving the edge to the Lightning in the goaltending department, but I don't think that's going to be what separates the teams, what's going to make the biggest difference. So yeah, I have Lightning in 6, and I think that they're gonna get that. I can't even remember what it is. The whatever the Eastern Conference trophy is, Prince of Wales, I want to say. So they're gonna take it at home, and they're gonna touch it again. I'm calling it right now. Bolts in 6.
It's funny, as important as those trophies are, and as many times as the Lightning have won it in the past couple of years, I can never remember the names either.
I know.
I think you're right, though, in the Eastern Conference trophy being the Prince of Wales. I have no idea what the Western Conference trophy is, actually, but we also asked...
I'll know it.
Yeah. We also asked Chris as well, who's unfortunately not with us. But he said, and this in such crisp fashion, he said, Bolts in 4. So there's Chris's prediction. He's got the second sweep for the Lightning here in round number. That would be something. How about it for the Lightning to come out and sweep the Rangers in round 3? That might break the NHL.
I can't see that happening. I appreciate the enthusiasm, Chris, but I'd like for it to happen for sure. But you know what? At the same time, both losses are hard, but the more hockey, the better. So, a little bit of a longer series, I think it'll be good for everyone's health.
Yeah, we can't deal with another long, huge break from Lightning hockey, right? What would we do with ourselves?
I've had to actually live my life. Like, I don't like this.
So I just looked it up, by the way. It is the Prince of Wales for the Eastern Conference
Clarence
trophy.
Campbell.
And then the Western Conference is the Clarence S. Campbell Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, not even it's called the Clarence S. Campbell Bowl, which actually I didn't even know. Eureka in the background there did nail that on the head. He said that in the chat. But before we wrap it up, let's quickly talk about. I know I've said that like 5 times. I apologize, but hey, more.
We're wrapping up soon, guys.
Yeah, but let's talk about the games going on in the Western Conference, which is actually starting tonight as of this recording. I know Eureka's itching to get out here and go watch this game, but it's the Colorado Avalanche taking on the Edmonton Oilers. Game 1 starting tonight. That should be a very fun series. You got Connor McDavid versus Nathan MacKinnon, 2 franchises that have had trouble getting out of those early rounds, but they're now in the Western Conference Finals with a chance to go to the Stanley Cup. Edmonton still holding on to Canada's dream of having another shot at the Stanley Cup. So it should be a fun one. It's going to be an intense battle. Matt, your thoughts on this series?
It's going to be fun for Avs fans. I can't see that. I can't see this series going very far at all. Not that I'm an Edmonton hater, but I just think that their team is wildly overrated. I get you have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, but aside from that,
they're the ones carrying this team. Let's be honest.
Yeah, seriously. And they've had some of their depth players show up, like Zach Hyman, like RNH and Kyler Yamamoto. They've had those depth players really
and
show
Kane
up.
Too. How can we forget about Evander Kane?
I always forget about Kane as well. So, but again, Calgary, they just vanished. I mean, Jake Markstrom couldn't stop a beach ball, and Darcy Kemper, he hasn't been much better as well. So you've got 2 of the best offensive players in the league. The best. So Connor McDavid versus Nathan MacKinnon. Then you got Draisaitl versus Rantanen, RNH versus Landeskog, and then the Colorado list. I can keep going, but I'm gonna start running out of names for Edmonton. And again, it's gonna be entertaining. I'm gonna be watching a lot of these games as well. But again, I can't see Edmonton and its current state getting past Colorado. And you know what? If they do, I can't see them getting past the Lightning, or God forbid, the Rangers as well. So
I was going to quickly ask you there. Do you have a preference of who comes out of the West? Assuming obviously the Lightning have to get through their own series, but I know most people will just tell you they don't care, which is honestly the truth. As the Lightning have shown, they can beat anybody. But do you have a preference of the Western Conference?
Yes, I would prefer Edmonton to win because I think that would be a better matchup for us. But I think just the best thing that this hockey world could have is a Lightning Avs Stanley Cup final, because the 2 games that we played this year, I believe we split them, or I know we lost one in a shootout. I think we may have lost both actually, but they were close-ish games. But you know what? They were entertaining games. They were full of offense, full of physicality, and I think that would just be, at least 4 games, at most 7 games of that. It would be great for the entire hockey world. I know Eureka's going to come out on top either way. And
for those that don't know, Eureka is a Colorado fan, so that's why we keep mentioning that. He loves the Lightning, and Lightning come first, and we give him a hard time about it all the time. But he is a Colorado fan.
But I think that would be the most entertaining series out of all of these playoffs. But again, I would rather play the Oilers just because I think we'd have a better shot of winning.
Yeah, I don't. Both those teams are so good. They'd be tough matchups either way. I honestly would rather Edmonton just because we would get home ice in that scenario. Not that home ice means a ton, as we've shown, it doesn't matter. But I just prefer to have Game 7 at home. That's always more fun, especially in the Stanley Cup. But yes, no, Edmonton has less points than us in the standings, so we would get home ice over Edmonton, but not Colorado. But I agree. Eureka in the comments here behind the scenes. It'd be nice to be ruined Canada's dreams twice in a row. Yeah, absolutely. That is another great point to be playing Edmonton. But I agree with you, Matt. I think it's going to be Colorado. They look unstoppable right now. And it would be a lot of fun to watch Bolts versus Colorado. But we got to get through round 3 first. And that is what's going to be at hand. So we'd love to hear from you guys as well. Let us know what you think about either of these series. Let us know in the comments down below, wherever you're listening to this, whether you're seeing it on Twitter, on YouTube, wherever it is. We appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. If you could do us a favor too as well and subscribe to that YouTube channel, give us that 5-star rating or whatever it is on whatever platform you're listening to. We really do appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Matt, I'll give you the final words to end us out here and close it out.
Again, yeah, guys, thanks for listening to this playoff preview version of RBLR Lightning. I'm Matt Gannon. That's Jake Ricker. See you guys in the Stanley Cup Final. Go Bolts.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.